Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast, episode 60. In this episode, I speak with my very dear friend, Ford Fanter. This is Ford's third appearance on the podcast, and he did not disappoint. Ford is an incredible artist, phenomenal human being, beautiful soul, and I always enjoy our conversations. The book of the episode is a book that Ford has written, and it was actually the book of the episode the last time he was on the podcast. It's called Moth, Poetry and Prose by Ford Fanter. Beautiful story, wonderfully written, takes you on a journey from beginning to end. I highly recommend it. It's called Moth, Poetry and Prose by Ford Fanter. If you want to listen to the podcast, be sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you want to watch the podcast, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@thesamdeverpodcast. Here's my conversation with Ford. Ford Fanter, welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast. Again.
I'm so excited to be here for the third time.
Man, it just felt right. Like now it's great because the first one we did, it was one-man band in Griffith Park, which was beautiful. That was like at the beginning. Then we did one on Christmas, not last Christmas, the Christmas before. And we did it on Zoom for over 3 hours.
Yeah.
And now we're here with shout out to Eric Sarich on the production.
Man, this is a great...
Now we can just sit back. No, and of course, any technical things could happen, but at least we can just focus in on the conversation.
Yeah.
And
this is great. I'm so excited.
I'm going to plug your book right off the bat, actually. Because we were like, Moth. Is it Poetry and Prose?
Yeah.
By Ford Fanter. Such a great piece of work, man. Such a great piece of work. Have you been doing any writing in this sense lately? Any poetry writing or?
I write every day.
Yeah.
I not so much in the way that I used to. When I wrote this book, there was about a 2-year period where I wrote every day, and I was averaging about 2 poems a day. And I was pretty loose with my criteria. It was just like get something out and make sure it's truthful and don't judge it. Let it be what it is. So I put, I've eventually formed that into the narrative, which is this book, picking my favorite pieces and even supplementing and adding some new stuff. But lately I've been writing a lot more performance style stuff. And occasionally I'll write in essay form. I'll just kind of, free associate, or I'll just write something that I feel, I need to articulate just for my own sense of clarity on the topic. And sometimes I'll just write a poem for the sake of just the fun of it. But I'm very focused on writing performance style poetry, which is something that I've always done, but not so much in this this form. I mean, this book is very meant to be read, obviously. And I write my performance work, I really compartmentalize in a different way. It's meant to be performed. And I think even sometimes the way I write it, it's, I know exactly the rhythm, and I don't know that it always, if someone else were to sit down with some of my material, I would say, okay, well now, there's emphasis here and here. That these 2 words bridging together actually rhymes with this one word there. So you have to, I'd have to kind of coach them on the rhythm of it. I mean, not to say that it sometimes, there's stuff in here that's written pretty rhythmically. And I remember one of my friends reading one of them out loud, and he nailed the rhythm. So I guess some of it, you can read it and understand how it's supposed to be read. But I guess all that's to say that I'm writing stuff that's very specifically meant to be performed, and I have a very specific way that I want to perform it and express it, if you will.
And perform you do.
Oh, yeah.
I have to shout out the last well, first of all, you and Eric Charles Jorgensen and 2 Men Need Help.
Some Men Need Help.
Some Men Need Help. There we go. Directed by Wolf Bodison. Brilliant. Yeah. Absolutely brilliant. And then your one-man show, Desire. That was like, I tried explaining it to some people that obviously weren't in LA, and I didn't know if I could. It was just, I just remember going to that show, and this has happened several times at several of your shows I've been to. I'm like, okay, there's no way he's gonna top that one. Then I go to your next show. Well, there's no way he can. You just can't. I'm like, okay, there is no possible way that he could even. And then I go to Desire, and there's hands in the air, and it's like it was beautiful, man.
Thank you.
It was beautiful. Very, very wonderful piece of work.
It was a very personal piece, and interestingly enough, it was. I was given a time slot at the Silver Lake Lounge. I was given like 20 minutes, and I was feeling the need to, wanting to get a show up and running, but not really having the motivation to do it. And when someone gives you a deadline, and they're like, you have till this time to get this thing done, and now there's someone kind of counting on you to get it done. It's an extra motivator. So I was able to take a bunch of pieces and be like, oh, well, these are all good. I'll kind of mash these together, and I'll put together a set. And that's what it was originally. And over the course of that residency, which was several weeks, which got extended a few times, it formed into that show. I mean, it was the show, but it became a different show by the end. It became cohesive. It started to congeal. And I started to figure out, oh, wait, I really do have something that I want to say. And I started editing and rewriting and adding stuff. And there were even times where he had to adjust the schedule of the night, because I was playing with other acts, and he would have different amounts of acts each night. And one night he was like, I need you to keep it under 20 minutes. And I had written a 30-minute show at this point. I was like, how am I supposed to do that? And my first inkling was one of real frustration of like, I've been doing this for you for X amount of weeks, and you got some new people coming in, and now I'm supposed to change for them. But I had to really reframe it and be like, okay, maybe I can learn from this. Maybe if I can be flexible in this and just learn to be flexible anytime someone asks me to, then I am never in danger. I can always, it's like in improv. They're like, if you can't improvise with a bad improviser, you're not a good improviser either. So I had to improvise, and it actually helped me rewrite and get rid of things that were kind of a little flimsy. It's like, well, I needed an excuse to put something else there. And since the show was already there, I was able to focus in on that one little thing that wasn't working and change it and add something that actually fit way more the actual cohesion of the show. And so I was able to improve it over the course of a couple of weeks, but it was there were things that I felt at that time very deeply that I needed to express. And I feel like doing that show, I got to do that. And now I don't feel the need to do that show anymore, which is interesting. Like, people are like, you going to do it again? And I'm like, I don't think so. And it's like when you were saying, I don't know how he's going to top that. Well, I mean, I don't think my intention is to ever really top what I'm doing, but I don't want to do the same thing over and over because it loses meaning for me. There's the more I grow, the more my work grows, the more I learn about myself, the more I want to move into new areas of creation and say, well, now I feel this way about life or myself or the world. So I need to express this now instead of continuing to express this, even though it's good. And then by trying something new, it helps me take all the things that I learned from that past exam and try something new. It's a new semester, new curriculum. And that's kind of the way I look at it. And I feel like that helps you kind of keep improving. If you kind of stay with the pulse of your heart and the kind of the way you're interacting with the world, I think you can continuously top what you did last time because you're not staying, you're growing. You become a better person over time, I believe, at least if you're trying. I don't need to go into the whole good person, bad person thing.
You touch on an interesting topic there because you're right. Like, so many people would just be satisfied with, oh, I got this great show. It's a hit. I'm just going to roll with this and just do this. But you're just like, no, that's done. What can I take from this for the next one and the next one? That now that you say it like that, I'm like, yeah, you do just continuously evolve. in your art.
Yeah. I mean, there's
And
things in this book that I would probably read and be like, I don't think that anymore. I don't
Right.
feel that way anymore. And part of it is because I had to process it through this. I mean, the book was, I read it and I'm like, oh God, I'm so insecure and so fragile. And like, I don't feel like that anymore. And I really do feel that my creativity is linked to my health. I need to do it uh, to process what I'm thinking. I think it's the most acute way I'm able to um, articulate what I feel, and then I can look at it, and it reflects me to me, and I go, oh, okay, that's what I feel. That's who I am. All right, okay, lesson learned, and then move on. You know, it feels essential almost in a way.
Kind of like your own therapist in a way too. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's a way of having those conversations with yourself,
right?
But actually producing something out of it so you can reflect. And I guess some people just might journal,
right?
But you could come up with, you do so many various art forms. I mean, really, when I think of you, you're just constantly on this quest of self exploration.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious as a cat, you know.
Yeah,
I love to play and explore. Cat. Yeah, groovy kitty. Yeah.
Well, even on your Instagram stories, sometimes like when you do the very tiny writing, but it'll be like really long for multiple. I'll go through those, and I'm like what he just wrote in just a few like tap throughs on Instagram's genius. Oh, but to you, you're probably just like, you just got to get this out.
Right. You know? Well, I mean, it is fun. I mean, it's cool to see, to realize that you have the power to make things that are, I will read through those sometimes and be like, whoa, this is good. Like I like my own work. I do. And I think it's really obnoxious to anybody who finds that conceited. I know that I've heard other artists talk about that, and I even heard I think a blurb from Donald Glover saying, he's like, if I didn't think I was a good artist, I wouldn't try all the things that I try. And I feel the same way, but I'm trying to amuse myself. I mean, another great quote I heard is like, is music for the listener or the player? And I don't know who it was that was responding to it, but he said, music is for the listener, but the first listener is the player. And that's everything I make is for an audience, but I'm the first person who's the audience for that. And so it's like, if it doesn't tickle me, I don't think it's going to tickle someone else. If it doesn't get me going, and I do it for me, it's like, I want to see it and be like, oh, that's exactly what I wanted to make. Oh, I like this thing and this thing. How do I combine them so that I have the best of everything, but it also came from me? I don't know where that possessiveness comes from, though. I mean, I've heard a lot of other people say this, like, man, I wish I'd written that song,
right,
Right. And it's like, why are we so personal about it? Why is it? Because I know other artists relate to that feeling of wanting that, to have contributed to it, to have had it come from you. Because there is a special feeling to it. There's a real alignment with yourself. I think a real self-satisfaction in not just participating in the being the audience, but having participated in creating something. I think there's just a real sense of self-satisfaction in that. And I love that feeling for sure. Yeah.
And with you, there's so many art forms. I mean, we've talked about it before. I mean, acting, music, writing, performance art, that includes it all. Like, I don't even know if you can pick a favorite, but like, do you just go with what calls you? Because like you'll go in cycles. I've noticed. Like you'll do a full length play, but then you'll work on music a bunch and then perform music for a while, and then you'll go right back to doing a new one-man show. It's just, but I think it keeps you so interesting because like it just keeps people like, what doesn't he do? Like he just constantly is like, I always picture as that mad scientist just in the the creative laboratory, just making things. So can you maybe take me through that process, your creative process? And
I definitely go through seasons, where I'm compelled to play my guitar for a lot. Like there was a period in, I think, 2021 where I was playing music a lot. I wrote a lot of songs and I was playing live shows and I really wanted to do an album and I had all this music ready to go for an album and I was going to record it, and then acting just kind of swung its way back into my energy field, and I get diverted. And I mean, I have ADHD pretty heavy, so I've been, for most of my life at least, at the mercy of like things I don't really feel that I'm in control of or that I have any say in. They just sort of, and I'm working to be a little bit more aware of those things so that I can navigate them a little better, because it's a better feeling to, you have a project that you're really interested in and you get almost to the end and then you're just like, well, no, now I have to do this thing now. And it's a distressing feeling to feel like I can't get the things done. I have to speed and get this done while I have the inspiration, because once it dries up, it's gone. And then I'm fucked. This thing's never going to get made. But yeah, I was making music for a while, and then I drifted out into, I don't know, I was doing more of these performance pieces, and then got back into class and started doing kind of real basic acting work again. And I think acting really is sort of my first love. It's the thing that I did as a child, did theater and performance, and so that's the thing I have the longest history with. And music took so long for me to learn. I had to teach myself. I never took any lessons, so it was an arduous process, and I was constantly plagued with this imposter syndrome about it, in the sense of like, well, I don't really technically know what I'm doing, so I can never really take myself seriously in this. So I always kind of did it by myself, and it was always more of a hobby. And I don't think I ever really took it as seriously. And writing, I didn't even start doing until maybe I was 24. Like actually writing consistently and saying, well, I want to write. I want to get good at writing. And I sucked at writing for the longest time. Sucked at writing, whatever. But and I mean, it's like, I want to paint. I would, and I have plans to really I like to doodle. I doodle a lot. And, they all kind of have tiers of importance to me. Doodling is, every now and again, I'll fill a notebook with doodles, and then I'm just like, all right, I'm spent. I really would probably not do anything actually real legitimate with doodling. Playing music is one of those things where it's like every now and again I'd like to throw a show and have my friends come, and we'll sit in the backyard and we'll sing you some songs, and we'll all have a good time, and we'll drink cider and be a little tipsy and sit by the campfire and be cozy, and it'll be nice, that's probably it though.
I've been to a couple of those.
Yeah.
They're fun.
I mean, it's a good time. And then writing is writing and acting are like a means to an end. I feel like in a way acting is, I don't have the interest in just being an actor. Acting is a tool to convey the things that I care about and I'm interested in and want to explore. And the writing is the sort of skeleton of that. The acting is like the muscles that go over the skeleton. Right? Writing is the skeleton of my ideas. And then I love when the thing is written and then I get to get up and step into those muscles and get up and perform it and actually complete the thing. I mean, that's really the thing I'm happiest doing. Getting a role and having to dig into the role is a bit more challenging for me. I don't always love the roles. In fact, a lot of times I don't really like the roles, or I just am not compelled by them. I'm not interested in them. And when Eric and I were doing Some Men Need Help, he kind of had to drag me kicking and screaming. Like, I really didn't want to do it. And I don't know why, because I had a great time and I learned so much. I learned a lot from Eric, and discovered a lot in that process of doing that play. I learned a lot from Wolf too. Oh my gosh. Directing wise, there were things, he knows how to slow things down. And there were so many times where he would say, just like sit there and don't do anything for a long time. And those were the most like impactful moments for me, and clearly the most impactful moments for the audience. It were just things you wouldn't think of, really simple things. And so I'm happy I did that play. I'm happy I uh, gave over to that role, because there was a point where I eventually just was like, all right. The whole reason I did it was because I wanted to keep my wheels turning, my creative juices flowing, with the hopes that it transfers into my writing, and that I wouldn't just slow to a stop and not be doing anything creative. And it got overwhelming, and I was like, no, that's taking all my time, and I can't get anything done that I want to get, and I have to do this stupid play, and I have to turn grumbling on my driving, like, oh, I gotta go, I could be going to bed early, and I gotta work in the morning, but now I gotta drive, and just, it was such a pill during that fucking play. But after the fact, the discoveries that I made, and just things that I feel like clicked, and now when I'm working on things that I'm working on now, I'm realizing, oh, whoa, I can access things so much easier. I really did some hard work to level up, I feel like. The acting, yeah, it's there when I need it. It's when there's something that really I feel like needs to be put into action and activized. That's when that tool comes to use. As far as like going in, I hate auditioning. I don't feel like I'm good at it. I don't enjoy it. I get overwhelmed by it, and I get stressed out by it. But when it's something that I've created and I've written, I can obsess over it. I can just be so excited about it and interested in it.
Lot to unpack there. That was well said. The first, well, based on what you just said about the auditioning, like that's one thing I've always respected about you too, is you carve your own lane out here in Hollywood. Like everyone's trying to. We've had this talk before. I can't remember if it was on the podcast or us all going on a hike or walk or something. But I loved how you said one time how out here in LA especially, everyone's trying to get to the top of the mountain, and they're trying to rip people down and just trying to get to the top. And you're just like, well, what if I don't want to climb that mountain? What if I just want to go climb this one over here?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
And that, like, or you kind of have that Warhol type of, like, Andy Warhol, like, he just went and did his thing, and people came to him. Like, that's what you kind of remind me of, is you're going to do Ford Fanter no matter what. So any audition, like, look, if it works out, it works out. But okay.
Yeah.
I have 10 million other creative things I'm working on right now. Is that fair to say? I mean,
yeah, I think there are people that are really good at that know how to take a script and execute it, and know, like, I know how to be the tool that you need. I know how to, and I mean, I'm so impressed by those people. Those people work a lot, and they're constantly going out. They know the business. They know what they're doing. They are flexible, and they're guns for hire. You know what I mean? And I don't know that I'm necessarily a gun for hire. I don't know what I would call it. But I mean, the people that I'm very probably enamored by, if I can think, I mean, I love George Harrison. I love how George Harrison, like, in his music writing, he had things that he wanted to say, and he wanted to express that, he really wanted to get to a deeper understanding of himself, and he was doing it through his music. And I love Reggie Watts.
You introduced me to him. Not actually introduced
right,
me. You
but
showed me who he was.
Work. Yeah. Just like, he is one of those people that just like definitely was like, yeah, I think people would actually like seeing me like goof off with funny voices and a looping pedal and music, and it'll be my own thing because I think it's funny and no one else is doing it, and I haven't seen anyone else do it, but that doesn't mean it can't be done. Like, just trust me. I totally think you'll like this. I can sense that that's his energy with it, and I love that. And George Carlin too, he wasn't just like, I am filling, you need a slot for a comedian. and I'm going to fill that slot. He was like, I need to do this because I actually think I have some stuff figured out and that you might be interested in this.
And that's what, I mean, dude, that reminds me of Desire. That's kind of the feeling I'm like, holy, he worded everything that a lot of us have thought, but he's articulated it and put it in a digestible format. That's kind of what George Carlin did with a lot of his stuff.
I got a lot of comparisons to him with that show in particular. And that was a lot of fun because it was the challenge of like, I'm just going to animate my feelings. Every different feeling I'm going to take and I'm going to apply it to a character. And then I'm going to create a scenario for that character that will be the vehicle for that idea. And it's basically like, I kind of almost thought of it like, I'm just like Robin Williams' genie and I'm just pulling things out of the hat and it's going to be all these, it's a cartoon and it's like a weird thing and it's going to morph and it's going to go off in directions and it's a living, breathing, like shape-shifting monster that is my mind, and it doesn't, it exists outside space and time. Like I liked exploring that. It's like, it's just my imagination. Like if I were cartoonifying it and then now I'm acting out what the cartoon would be, and it's going to be weird and wacky. Yeah, that show was fun though. I mean, I would do it again just for the sheer sake of it being fun.
Well, it had a message.
Yeah.
It had like that. That's what again, I mean, there's so many things I can say about it, but if I had to, aside from it just being extraordinary, it's like the way you tied it all in at the end. It's like it really, I mean, it was like a thought piece on a billion steroids. Like, I'm like, whoa, what? Like, it was entertaining, but it was intelligent entertainment. Like, it really, you had a great message toward the end that leaves the audience thinking about life until, ironically, we all get stuck back in cell phones and sucked into the Matrix again.
Which will happen, you
Yeah.
You need consistent resets and, you can't stay in that state forever. Part of why it's so euphoric and exciting to go to that state is because it is temporary and that it, we get back into the minutia of things. I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't, you can't sustain bliss. I mean, you can, obviously you're into meditation and you understand the ideas of, creating a more consistent state of awareness so that I am in a state of bliss as much as possible, no matter what's going on, no matter what I'm going through. And, I mean, that's what the show was about too, it was all about this idea that like it was me trying to kind of figure out the philosophy that I was starting to really cling to, which was, or be taken with, which was just like this sort of like, you can't get what you want, and so just try to enjoy it anyway. You have the choice of just being like, I'm gonna endure this because I don't really have a choice. And nothing I try to do is going to fix it. I can't sustain that level of satisfaction. And I think I have to say this with a caveat and an asterisk, but like suffering is good. I don't want people to suffer. And I would not go and tell that to someone who's suffering in a way that I have not suffered. And I have no business telling other people how to react to their suffering. For me though, it's foolish for me to assume it's not going to happen or that I can slink away from it or that my life is enriched by not overcoming something, seeing something come up. And it's like, I've been avoidant a lot of my life. Like, try and dodge the crisis and pre-plan for it. So it's, when it comes, I'll be ready for it. And now I'm finding there's so much relief when they come up and you're just like, all right, well, wait a second. Now this is a chance for me to learn something. I can get a tool from this, and like, I don't need to succeed. I don't need to manifest. I don't need to to get what I want, because what I want is an interesting life. What I would like to be is have, you know, it's all feelings. That's the whole world. All of us are just sort of feeling and perceiving our way through the world. And I think when you go through all these different kinds of things, you have this whole diverse palette of experience, and you have all these different feelings, and you can, I mean, for art lovers, it's great. For people who love to create and take in art, you see something, you go, oh, I know exactly what that is. I know exactly what that feels like. I've been through that very specific thing, and wow, they articulated that. They know what that's like too. I don't feel alone. And that's so much better than just being like, have you ever noticed sometimes when things are going super well, you're kind of like, wow, remember when I was like breaking down and crying in my car? Like, there was some kind of moment when you finally get like some sense of relief from that, because I had moments like that in the last couple of years where I was just so despondent, and I would break down. I have one particular moment that I remember being in like a drive-through and just sobbing. I felt so alone, and then all of a sudden I just felt the sense of like peace, and just this sense of like comfort in just having expressed and felt, and I felt alive. And sometimes when things are going like super well and everything is going right, you're kind of like, think to that moment, you're like, wow, I was more alive in that moment than, not necessarily more alive, but it's weird how you'll sometimes miss it. You'll be like, I like the extremes. Life has a lot of extremes, and I think that in my work, what I really am attracted to is trying to go to those extremes and go to those places that almost feel like you're, like on a roller coaster, like, oh my God, I'm going to be sick. Like that's what I want in my work, is to go to that point of like, oh my God, I'm dying laughing. This is so funny. And then bam, oh my God, this is brutal and tragic, and oh shit, that's not a fluffy thing. That is the thing that we all know happens in life, and it's brutal and it's tough, and oh shit. And then nice little joke, like, oh, here we are back up again. It's gonna be okay. See, we can do this. We can do this. And I love that. I think that's art. I can't. I want excitement, and that's the only way I really know how to get it. I mean, I thrashed around a lot on that stage for Some Men Need Help, and that's fun. It's like, I don't go to mosh pits. Some people go to mosh pits. They like that, Some people, everybody has their kind of way that they get their adrenaline rush, and for me, it's making stuff.
And when I watched you in Some Men Need Help, I'm like, I can't picture any other person doing this role. Like, now that I've seen you do it, I'm like, what you did with that, I'm like, oh man, I could never watch someone else do this. But then we said the same thing when Heath Ledger played the Joker, then Joaquin Phoenix played the Joker. But regardless, man, like, I just love how you just have when you're on stage or wherever you're at, it just seems limitless.
It's because it is.
Yeah,
really. It is. For any of us, really, it is. Our imagination is so fucking limitless.
And there's so many things I could veer off of everything you just said. To quote, paraphrase the Duke's women's basketball coach. She had a video. It's called "How to Handle Harder Better," something like that. But she basically says, life doesn't get easier. It's not going to get easier. Like, Eric and I were even talking this beforehand. Like, you just think, oh, there's going to be this magical moment. Like, relief. Mm-hmm. No, that never comes. You just learn how to handle harder better.
Yeah.
That's what I've just accepted. So when you said because I agree with the philosophy, what is this teaching me? When you reframe like that, it changes everything.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, and that's why The Alchemist is one of my favorite books, because he doesn't understand why he's going through what he's going through, but it was leading him to the next thing. But he needed to go through what he had to go through to get to that, to his treasure, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's like, nothing is, like we were saying earlier, nothing is sustained, and you get the treasure, you might get a treasure. You don't even realize
it may not be the treasure.
Right. And then it's going to get spent, and I do think that I, for the longest time, had that in my mind, that idea of like, there is a point. There's a point that when I get to it. But yeah, I don't remember when I started saying this to myself. It's like, it doesn't get easier. You just get better at it. Anything that any of us know how to do, or that any artist watching feels like they're good at, or that they study, there's disciplines that we're all interested in. Most people have some kind of discipline that they're interested in, and I lost my train of thought.
Well, and even at a job, even at oh, trust me,
man, that was juicy.
We're not even.
You can't sustain it, man. That's it. That's life. There we go. We're done.
Oh yeah, no, you're on fire right now. No, even at just a regular job, like when you start a new job. And you know how it can be on some, it's like, oh my God, how am I going to do this?
Yeah, oh my God.
But then 6 months later, you're a pro.
You're doing it in your sleep.
In your sleep, you're training people, you're teaching. So it is amazing how we do adapt and learn things, whether we want to or not.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that feeling of calm. That feeling of like, you're doing something that's difficult, and it's difficult. And I think what I was going to say earlier was that like, things don't get easier. Like, I was going to say something along the lines, like, if you're a guitar player, like, and you're playing these like really difficult scales, those scales do not become easy ever. They're always hard. They're always super challenging scales. But you get good at doing it, and every now and again, if I'm playing a song and it has the more like complicated, excuse me, a little gas. When it gets that little complicated part that every time you get to it, I'm like, this was the hard part. This was always the hard part. And you do it, and you're sort of like watching yourself do it. And there's that like calm of like, I am calm. But at the same time, there's a part of you that's like, there's the other parts of you that are like, all right, and they're all shouting to each other, all right, and I do this, and then the hands do that, and it's like a submarine crew, like all pulling their levers and doing their thing to get the thing happening. But and you're the captain just watching your crew work, and they're working and they're sweating, but you stick the landing, and it's like, wow, I know I can do that, but I almost can't believe I can do it. And that is satisfying every time. That like, this is not easy, but I'm good at it. I can feel myself working. Athletes always work up a sweat. They're always exhausted, Kobe Bryant was phenomenal. I'm sure he was always exhausted, and it was never not a challenge. It employed all aspects of his training and his focus. It's still work, but.
And he trained harder than everybody.
Yeah.
That's how like the submarine, and that's a pretty good. I was talking. Shout out to Ty. I was talking to him earlier before this podcast, because this concept I've been, and now we start to. It's just gonna start.
Down the hole, baby.
Yeah, we're just going down the rabbit hole from here. And I mean, I just want to get your take on this, or your interpretation, like. When you're all into stuff and you feel like you're like, oh, I'm busy all the time now. I'm getting this done. I'm doing that. I'm feeling, yeah, we're hitting milestones. There's still like this. You just realize that it's never going to be enough. I'm realizing that it's just never. Like, you can always make more money. You can always do this, and I think there's good things about that. But there's also, I feel, part of it that disconnects you from life a little bit. And I was talking to him. We were talking about like, having enough for retirement one day and what you need to do. And we just started talking like, but by the time you get to that retirement, how much time did you spend like just obsessing over that leading to that point? And he's like, you got to still live life. You still have to enjoy these present. Like we always talk about being present. So it's like, it's a balance, but it's hard because you get pulled so many directions, and I'm like, oh, well, maybe I should do nothing and I should just meditate and find the true meaning of everything. But then it's like, or I have a purpose though. I need to fulfill my purpose, and I need to do everything I can at every living moment to get this done before I die. I'm trying to find that happy medium.
Right. Well,
that's just to start us off. I don't know.
It's very maddening because it's like, I'm very much in that like absurdist mindset where it's like, I should fulfill my purpose, but there is no purpose. I don't have a purpose. Like, I really don't have to do anything. Um, uh, so I guess if nothing matters, then I can continue to obsess over trying to do my purpose. It's always, there is no satisfaction. And no matter what you're trying to do, there are some of those paradoxical, like, moments where you have to sit with this discomfort, of being like, am I doing too much? Am I doing too little? Well, does it matter? Does it not matter? And even in asking, like, what should I do? You're still engaged in that, like, wrestle with the weird, unknowable universe of trying to control, or trying to, it's the I'm trying to find a way to alleviate myself. And I'm resisting constantly. It's like the Buddhist proverb of the guy who goes to the master and he's like, how do I enlighten me? He's like, well, you got to accept yourself. So now go accept yourself. I think it's an Alan Watts thing that he tells. I mean, I'm sure it's been told by everybody, but that's where I heard it. And it's like, well, but I can't accept myself. And he's like, but you have to accept the part of yourself that doesn't accept yourself, and it's like, no, how do I do that? And it's like, well, you don't do that. And you accept the fact that you don't do that. And you accept the fact that you can't accept that you don't do that. And it's like, well, how do I do that? And it's like, now you are caught in the minutia. Now you are stuck in this spiral, and you've, every time I'm like, you're like, oh, we're trying too hard to control things. Well, now I have to try not to control things. Well, you're trying to control you not controlling things. It's like you get to those certain points. Like, I can't take it. There's nothing I can do. Can I win? I can't win. I can't get anything. I can't do this thing. It's there. Everywhere I step is a trap. Every ounce of control I try to take, I'm pulling against something. And part of it is those little moments where you can just be like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to just let myself do what I do and let myself float down that stream and be okay with the fact that I realize that there's, maybe no point, and that this, search is futile, and that I'll never, this is shallow. I want material things and I shouldn't. It's like, it's fine. It's fine to want material things. It's you don't have to have this shame of trying to get, at least that's what I'm kind of going through right now and learning. It's this, like, what's the best way to live? And so you're spending so much time thinking about the best way to live. It's like what you said, you should just be living. Am I doing too much? We get so caught up in, I have to accomplish all these things. I have to get all these things done because that will give me satisfaction. But if you're too far in the other thing where it's like, I need to just not worry about anything. Oh God, I'm worrying about something. I need to be worried about not worrying about that anymore. You're doing the same thing, just in the inverse direction. And yeah, it's like the middle ground is also paved with the extremes. It's like, I'm trying to find the middle ground. It's like, well, you gotta allow yourself to do the extremes, because that's part of the middle ground. The allowance is, I guess. It's such a weird, it just, it crushes your mind into dust because it's just so elusive. It's a mirage. So much of, I think, what we want and what we're like going after is a mirage. There's this, these laws that we adhere to. We don't even really understand why they're there. Just if you boil it down simply to, like, species want to continue their existence. That's like one of the base things that pretty much all species want to do that, I assume, because if they are around, they're doing that. The ones that didn't want to do that have died off or will die off, It's like, why do we do that? It's like, it might not mean anything. When I realize that everything I'm trying to do boils down to, like, I want to fuck and, procreate. I don't even know why I want to do that. It's kind of like, well, if that's not real, then, like, I really don't have to, there's no real rules that I have to slave at the mercy of. Obviously, we've all agreed upon kind of what we want generally. I think that's what society is. It's like this contractual agreement, like, yeah, you know what? I want to exist and not get hurt. And so do you. So we're going to agree on that. does not mean that there is something presiding over us that's saying this is what you need to do. And we all feel it. We all feel this compelling, we feel compelled to it, but it's a utility. It serves a purpose. So we've said, well, maybe there is no meaning. I don't know we can't seem to agree on what the rules are of this thing. Maybe there are no rules. So if there are none, we'll just make it up. We'll make up what seems to be best for us and what seems to be the most sustainable and what works. And that's probably fine, right? I think, maybe. It's the only thing that really makes any sense to me, at least.
Yeah. Oh my God. Like there's like, I was trying to like bullet. Oh yeah, do you gotta say something about that? But you're so right. And the analogy I'm thinking as we're talking about, well, if I do this, I gotta do this. If I gotta do this, I gotta do that. Have you ever seen like when there's two mirrors facing each other, right, and you see the multiple mirrors that way and the multiple mirrors? That's what that kind of reminded me of. And also in the realm of anxiety and all this, like just take goal setting for example. Like it's never enough. Like even when you hit that goal, you're like, all right, so what's the next one? What's the next one? What's the next one? And it's like you're constantly putting yourself in that state of anxiety. And yeah, you're accomplishing things, but it just, you kind of look back. I wonder if like toward the end, if you look back and you're like, yeah, I'm glad I did that. But then you might look back and say, huh, but if I wouldn't have done that, I could have done a bunch of other stuff too. And that's kind of where it's at too. It's like, man, is where I'm spending my time where I should be spending my time. But to your point, there is no point. There is no answer to it. You spend it and you create. I love the analogy of Michael Malice when he said like life's a blank canvas and you can literally paint it whatever you want.
Right.
It's up to you.
A lot of people are into affirmations these days. A lot of people say, you are enough. And it's like, okay, well, if that's true, and I do believe it is, then you don't need to be loved. Yeah, we all want to. We seek out companionship because of all these reasons we could go into. But you don't need anything. You can your life can be mundane. I think a lot of times it leads to like it's like you want to have a full life. You want to live life and you want to realize that you don't have to live in shame, and shame is what stops you from doing the things that you want to do and taking the adventures and the risks that you want to. But that's not the only option. Like you are enough even if all you want to do is sit home and read every day. It's a strange, it's so interesting to start to kind of create a new relationship to shame and realize like, oh, it's fine that I'm flawed, and it's fine that I feel like in the toxic positivity realm, it's like this, you're enough, so don't be afraid. So go out there and go live your full life. And it's like, the inverse of that is fine too. You're fine in all things that you do. You shouldn't feel shame about anything. I had a therapist who said like guilt is useful, shame is not. And I'm not an anarchist in terms of like, yeah, just do whatever you want. And it's like, like I said, we've agreed upon kind of what we want, and we're still trying to figure out a lot of things. Things come up every now and again. We're like, oh God, we have to fucking do the work to figure out what we can really agree on that really feels the best. How are we going to handle this problem? Because it is a problem to us. Nothing matters. It's like, okay, but my problem still means something to me. I accept the idea, I do kind of feel that nothing really matters. There's no law, there's no rule, there's no anything that's saying this is the way it should be done. But it's okay if you have a personal feeling for how you want it to be done, and that's okay. And it's because you're compelled to. You don't have a choice. You are influenced by all these things that happen to you that flood you subconsciously before you even really realize what's happened to you. You don't have a choice but to have the personal outlook that you do. We all have agreed, we would like it if we all take responsibility to audit ourselves and say, okay, am I functioning in a way that is honoring what we've all agreed upon, and helps us all get to the kind of goal that we all said that we agreed to, which is, like in the American context of like freedom, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But there are things that conflict with that, and I think that for me, what I've started to realize is like truth is the first avenue to go down. It's like, okay, I want to be as truthful as possible. I cannot do that if I am in shame of myself, if I'm terrified. I need to be willing to take how people will react to it. I need to be able to say, look, people are not going to like every aspect about me. That's fine, because it's not their job ultimately. My therapist now, like every time I get like really judgmental about myself, she's like, "Oh, you mean you're flawed? Oh, you're a human being? You mean you have God forbid you ever make a mistake?" When you frame it like that, it's like, well, of course we make mistakes. Of course we have, trouble figuring things out and solving the problems that are personal to us that we want to have solved. So I can't navigate that. I can't understand what those are. I want to be able to move through the world effortlessly. And if I'm stopping every time to be like, wait a sec, should I be deceitful now? Because if I'm not, it could very much impede my process to getting what I want. If what you want is to have the most fulfilling experience in life, I think you have to have that risk of just being, well, I'm going to be truthful. And I'm going to see how it goes. I am receptive to what people do. If people start going, ugh, I don't like that around me, I alienate myself. I don't like that feeling. So eventually I'm going to go, you know what? I can live without this. Some people have behaviors that they can't live without, and that's distressing. I don't know what to do about that. Some people are compelled to behave in some ways. I think a lot of it can be healed and can be addressed. We have to understand it. And if we're shaming it, and if we're trying to hide it, and if we're trying to, it's like human nature. It's like we survived as a pack, as a tribe, as we're dependent on each other. We're not solitary creatures. We're social animals. So we have to understand that when shame is involved, it's going to affect that. It's going to turn those dials for people and affect how truthful they're going to be. And we can't deal with things if we don't know what they are. If they're hidden in the shadows, we can't deal with them. And I've noticed it's easier for me to address conflict when I'm just being honest. The more honest and upfront, and instead of just being like, well, I'm not going to say anything about it now, but I will later if it gets too much, I start building a resentment. And then when I am honest, it's personal. Now I've built up this thing about you in my mind, as opposed to just saying things in the moment when it's like, hey, I don't like that. I would prefer that. Can we not do that? Or, whatever. You may be a little energized in the moment, but I've noticed the more I do that, the more I practice that muscle, the more I'm relaxed about it. And it's like, it's not a thing about you. It's just like a thing that happened. And all right, well, then we move on from it quickly. So I feel like the truth is one of those little keys, I think, that it's like one half of the amulet, for figuring out, it's like that. It's a very clear compass. Okay, well, if I'm just not judging myself and understanding that there is nothing, if I can be okay with what might happen, I think I can live very presently and very fully, because I'm being honest about myself too. I'm understanding my contradictions. I'm understanding the things that I say that I am, and I'm understanding the things that maybe I subconsciously do. And the more I dig into that, the more I think the more present I will become. And okay, I can move through things swiftly and decisively. And I think that automatically leads to those lives we dream of that are adventurous, because there's nothing stopping you. Can't say that I'm there. I'm still very self-editing a lot of the time and stuff. But that's interestingly, that's the goal. But at the same time, I don't need to make that the goal. I'm fine now. I'm fine the way I am. There's nothing that I should be ashamed of. I shouldn't say, well, I'm not there yet. But I'm moving towards that. But if I die today, because that could happen, I could walk out here and it's fine the way I am. And I think that's we take for granted. It's obviously a platitude that we take for granted. You should be gratitude for every day. Have gratitude for every day. I'm alive. I could die at any moment. I mean, just really stop and think about that. That is true. Like, if there is some ideal to get to, that means, I think most people can relate to the fact that, like, children who die, that's incredibly tragic. It's even more tragic to me when it's like, yeah, but they didn't meditate and get to enlightenment. They didn't get baptized. They didn't get saved. It's like, I can't abide that. I can't be okay with that. They're fine. There's at any point in your life, you're fine, because at any point you could die. And that, I don't think that the universe is necessarily just. And maybe that's that's something I use to it helps me sleep at night. It adds a justice, is knowing that, well, there's a great Alan Watts book of essays called "This Is It," and he kind of talks a lot about that. This is it. Everything is fine. We want to, in society, of course, we want to, keep a good balance, more good, less bad, from what we perceive. But in the whole cosmic drama, everything is happening. It just is. It's not good or bad. It just is. And, for me, it's like, yeah, I don't want to feel like I have to get to a certain point in order to be okay, because that means all the people that haven't ever had the chance to even get to that point. It's a great way to dehumanize people. You don't even realize, and it's like, well, then you start to see people as expendable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If lives can't be valued, if they don't meet a certain criteria, then you can see how easily it gets to the point of they don't have value at all. It's like the characters that get killed off, it's like there's a terror. It's like, what if I, die and I don't accomplish anything? We're so obsessed with accomplishing things. And it's like, there are people that don't get that. So what's the point? You mean they don't have...
we have first world problems.
Yeah.
When there's people across the globe who just want food and shelter and the basic necessities of life. And as you're going through all this, it reminds me of, because if you think about, like, early on, because humans just had to worry about surviving the saber-toothed tiger and finding food and shelter that day.
Yeah. And they did that for 10,000 years.
Did it for a long time. Where now it's like we don't have to worry about any of that. And I'm just wondering how many of these things we just create ourselves.
Yeah.
And now, granted, I'm going earlier. If you feel something, you feel it. Even if someone tells you, like, oh, you shouldn't be. No, I'm feeling this, so it's real to me.
Yeah.
This exists to me. But I'm also wondering of how much of the things of, I'll just use myself as an example, things that I'm putting pressure on myself to do and I need to get. In the grand scheme of it, it's like, what happens if you don't get it?
Right.
Like, nothing's gonna, you're fine. Like you said, you're fine.
Right. Well, it's like saying, it's like, if it's like, well, the point of life is to, if it's in a contemporary context, if it has anything other than survive, then you've just excluded, like, the vast majority of all humanity that has ever existed. They never got, it's like, if your meaning of life exists in a contemporary cultural context, you've basically said, like, humanity could never, have a purposeful life until the Industrial Revolution or until the Digital Revolution, until we had jobs. And jobs gave us the meaning of life. It's like, all right, that's
structure.
Right, yeah. It's like
clock in, clock out.
Right. And so, I mean, it's, I don't, is it our, I went through a period of time where I was like, that was the normal way. We got so off track from that. And it's like, I mean, we did, it happened. I mean, I don't know that there's anything going, oh, shouldn't have veered off. Now you're going to die. It's like, we're so small. We're so infant, just so puny, like
fragile.
Yeah. Yeah.
Two things while it's on my, first of all, to encapsulate all this, like, it's a gift to be here. Like, it's a gift to even be in this game.
Yes.
Like, Marcus Aurelius' Meditations. Like, he says at the very end, he's like, paraphrasing, when it's your time to go, you can't complain about it because you're not the one that put yourself here. Someone, something, some being, energy, God, whatever you want to call it, puts you here. And when it's time to go, hey, you got to give them. You can't complain.
Yeah.
Now it's time to go.
Like,
and you remind me of a concept, like, people talk about universal income, like where everyone would get a certain amount no matter what, whether you want to work your ass off or if you just want to sit home and do nothing, you will get enough to live, pay your rent, get your food, whatever. And I heard someone counter it. Not that they were totally against it, but they said a consequence of it. Like someone like, especially you, flourish, thrive, because you could literally make whatever art you want to do all day. Well, again, it's all
right.
What does that
I have
even
no
mean?
idea, really,
right,
what I would do in an unstructured environment. Oh God!
But we're just for theoretical sake.
Yes.
You would keep yourself entertained, I would think. But then his counterpoint was, but there's a lot of people that aren't wired like that. Creatives, they're not artists, they're not. They need that structure. They need that purpose. So I don't know. You just, as we're talking about this, it's so complicated. Like it's like you're just, when you're really going like just a human being, like with consciousness and the ability to. I know you and I have talked about like unwiring yourself to just see how it's all put together, then putting it all back together again.
Well, whether we like structure or whether structure is good or bad is irrelevant. We like it. Typically, we're evolved to like it because our early experience was just we had to be structured in going through your day, getting fed, shelter, protect your group, and that was so it was built in to our existence.
Sun up, sun down.
Right.
Yep.
There's nothing to say that we can't evolve past that and that'll just be what it is, and we just may be at a point, where we're in an uncomfortable stage of that change. I mean, you could, who's to say that you can't be just as content as, we theoretically are in this, interface, as a blobby brain inside a juice tube, just like in imagination world, just, like a little matrix of your own making, like that might be fine. You and I are not wired for that.
Yeah.
We exist within a certain paradigm, and I think a lot of the distress comes from the idea of feeling that shift and bump up and be like, I'm not evolved for this. My brain can't handle thousands of people, we go, it's bad because and it's like, well, it's just you don't like it. It's not, you like a certain type of structure, and unfortunately this isn't it. It's not to say that humans can't eventually become that, and then that'll just be what humanity is. Humanity's used to civilization. Old humanity couldn't deal with it. Doesn't mean they were wrong. It just wasn't what their thing was. And some groups, fortunately, you're the experiment. You get subjected to like, fuck, now we're evolving. Oh, great.
We're the pilot.
Right, yeah. Oh, let's see how this one goes.
Yeah.
This might not go. A lot of us might die. I might be one of them. Oh, fuck. Oh, great. I was really liking this. Oh, well. Well, all right. Let's see how long this lasts.
Man, wouldn't it have been great to have been out here in like the 70s, man? Like,
I mean, I fantasize a lot about it a lot, as you know, but like, I don't know, man. You know, like people are going to be romanticizing these days.
Yeah, right.
And it's like 70s, it was like smoggy and racist and really, I mean, you know.
Yeah. And it reminds me, shout out to Josh Pickle, a conversation I had with him a while, but we were talking about like evolving and higher ascending and all this. And he said, dude, I never forgot this. He's like, evolving and transcending to a beam of light doesn't really appeal to me. He's like, I kind of like being human and all that. I saw his point. I'm like, because we were like, oh, you want to just go to the light. You're going to transcend past all this. It's just like, so I'm just going to just kind of float in the, I don't know if I like that too much.
I'm like, I'm okay with the animal thing. It's cool.
Right.
It works
it's not
for
too
me,
bad.
man. Yeah.
There's pain and suffering. Yeah.
But I mean, it's like, I know the deal. After 32 years, like, I know what the business is, you know? But, I mean, we are so insulated from a lot of that, though. You know, I've had a few confrontations in the last like 36 hours, I'd say, that were just random encounters where it was just like, whoa, that was intense. That person was ready to square up. And I'm like, oh man, I really don't have to deal with that a whole lot. You know, it's intense, but it makes you realize like I am geared to my environment. And there are a lot of different environments, and there have been a lot of different environments in those environments over the course of time. So I'm just really a product of where I am. There is so much more to experience, and thankfully, a lot of it is bad, and I don't have to go through that. I mean, that really is. I mean that in and of itself is something that it really begs reflection and gratitude for. You know, I mean, I have it so good. I'm so privileged, and to think about people that do have to spend a lot of their time in fight or flight mode, or whose whole existence was spent in fight or flight mode. I don't remember what the purpose of me saying this was, but
well, you just, if I can hear one thing you remind me of, that's why I don't like it when people say, well, you just got to work hard and everyone has the same opportunities. It's like, no, they don't. Like some people are born into absolute chaos and hell, literally.
Yeah.
So yes, can they make it? Of course, but it's not the same. You don't start at the same place on the starting block. It's just two different.
Yeah. I was having a conversation about manifestation, which I am not the expert to talk about it. But I mean, one of the things I do know, I mean, it's like anything where it has people that really kind of seem to interpret it in a very destructive sense, or just kind of a shallow sense, which is fine. But it's like, I don't think you're going to get the result that you think you're going to get. And it's like, well, it's like, I can control the universe. What's for me is will come to me, you know, and it's just that, you know, it's the idea. It's like, well, in the current circumstances that you're in, that's easier. You don't have obstacles to, you know, and it's easy to think, you know, if you live on a cul-de-sac in, Missouri, and it's lined with palm trees, and you don't ever leave that cul-de-sac, or maybe you go, the one time you leave that cul-de-sac, you go to the end of the cul-de-sac, and it is also lined with palm trees. You know, it's like two streets very close to you. And you're like, well, Missouri's just got tons of palm trees. It's like, actually, literally nowhere else in Missouri it has palm trees, you know? And you don't know that until you get out of that space. You don't really realize how false your reality could be, or it could be like, you could just really literally be in that one coincidence where everything is palm trees around you. When the more likely, it's like, well, all I've ever seen is palm trees. All I've ever seen is this goes well for me. It's like, yeah, put yourself in a situation where you have go out into the world, try, you know, doing it from a different angle, and you realize that maybe, I'm not to say that it will be that way, but you don't really, unless you've really gone out and explored everything. And even then, You can't grow up the way other people grew up. You can go to where they live, but you can only really experience it from a very specific variable in a world of seemingly infinite variables. So to boil down your belief on things, and it's when people talk with certainty about like, well, this is the way things work. It's like according to your variable. Birds fly. I all used to wonder, like, how did birds figure out how to fly? There must be some kind of way they're tapping into the laws of you could never figure that out, to have just evolve yourself into being able to fly. My sister, who is a biologist, was like, well, nature's just throwing shit at the wall. And the stuff that survives goes through the holes in the wall. Everything else goes splat. There are so many examples of, things that could have flew, but they just missed the mark by a little bit and then they died off and you don't know about them. So it's when it's like when you sort of, I guess the point talking about manifestation, people are like, manifestation works. I know because it worked for me. It's like, well, that you can't stake your claim on that because you don't, unless you've really investigated your variables and investigated, well, am I just one of those lucky birds that went through the window or went through the hole, that didn't get smashed against the wall and didn't fail in the attempts? I tried manifesting all these things and nothing fucking worked because I live in a society that's against me, that is structured so that I don't survive and thrive and get what I want, and that I'm targeted constantly, and that I don't have resources that I need. And it's like you have to consider all these things. And sometimes there's too many to even consider. So you have to sort of be like, well, this is what I suspect, but I also hold it in good amount of skepticism because I could be wrong. I don't fucking know what these other situations are like.
Whew. It's a whole other. First of all, it reminded me of the Truman Show.
Oh God!
When you're talking about
the movie, fucked me up as a kid.
Really?
Yeah. Oh my God! Because you're always looking up like the moon.
Yeah, it's man. I'm just like in this state of bliss right now listening to. But yeah, like it's we like the bird analogy you just used. Yeah, I've never really thought of it like that. Like how many things tried to fly but couldn't, and the ones that are here, and same with humans. But I've changed. I'm big on the subconscious mind. The power of the subconscious mind book by Dr. Joseph Murphy changed my life. I really believe in affirmations and all that to a degree. But I also feel like you're just not going to meditate for 3 hours a day and a Mercedes is going to be parked outside your house either. And I was talking to Eric before we started filming, like things are busy right now and it's all blessings, but the days of getting up and meditating for 40 minutes and now I'm going to journal for 30 minutes and now I'm going to go self-reflect outdoors for a little bit. Yeah, right now it's get up and time to get to work, like type of thing. But I realized, this is now the meditation. This is now, and I feel more calm through it, but it's like now this is, and I say all that to say like with manifestation, yes, to a degree, but you got to do the work. There's no easy way to anything. I think a lot of people think, I'm just going to do this the easy way so I don't have to bust my ass or whatever. Most people I know and have heard of, like, they busted their ass. Yeah. Whether they manifested it or not, So I don't know. That just kind of reminded me.
Yeah. I mean, failure is fine. Like, you don't have to get what you want.
Right.
You will get what you will get what you need, to use that whole platitude. It's not platitude. It's just true. I mean, it's like or you may not get what you need. I don't know. And then you die. And then, well, what's the worst that happened? You died. Okay. So what? You're going to do that anyway. Anyway, sometimes I see this, like, I need to get what I want. It's like, it's fear of a chaotic universe. It's, this, I can't fail. It's like, fail. It's fine. It's okay. You don't need to get what you want. You don't need to put all this value on getting what you want. in certain instances, at least, and go back, it's like all the people that are, history is written by the winners. All the people that are saying, well, this system works, are all the people that succeeded at it. But you're not picking up books where it's like, hey, I got the system and it doesn't work. You wouldn't read that. You only want to read the things that you think work, that people say work. And the only people who are getting published are the people who succeeded at it. You know what I mean? They don't publish. It's like the moment you publish your book and it becomes a success, you're successful. So you no longer can say, I think I wrote about it one time, when it was award season, and I couldn't help but thinking about this idea that people are like, if you stick to it, your dreams will come true. You can win this award too. Your dreams will come true. And I'm like, that's good. I appreciate that you go through that and that you worked for it and you got it. But people also need to know, and no one's up there on the podium going, hey, I didn't win the award. I didn't even get close. And it's still fine. Sometimes we live in Hollywood. We know a lot of people. We know firsthand how big the circle is of people who don't make it. And they're good. They are
They're phenomenal.
Fucking good. There are more of them in LA that are really good, just as good as anybody who's getting awards. And no one's heard of them.
Yep.
And I have to believe that, like, okay, well, I want the narrative to be there. It's like, you can try and you can fail. You could try your whole life to get an Oscar and never get it, never even get close. And it's history written by the winners. Like, yes, it's good. I love that you completed it, but I want people to also have that reality in them that, like, look, you may try just as hard as they did, and it just may not work out. And that is fine. It's this, we over virtuize, we add so much virtue to the people who failed, and then succeeded. Almost never do we at least give the credence to the people who failed, and then croaked. I think there's just as much nobility in that. You tried, you went out and you did it, and you tried. And even in the face of all it, there's so much power in that. I refused to quit. I had a death sentence. I'm never going to make it at the end of the day. And I did it anyway. No hope, no promise of ever, and it never paid off, and I still did it anyway. That's remarkable. That's a degree of dedication that we don't ever really give credence to, because we don't ever hear about those people. The moment you start hearing about those people, either it's after the fact. One of the biggest examples, is Van Gogh. And then he's idolized almost more than any other artist. And it's partially because of that reason. Because he didn't ever get to see his success. But we admire his work now so much after the fact. That resonates with us. I think the idea of, like, I don't care. He didn't ever stop at a certain point and go, you know what? I'm going to just get a job at MasterCard. I can't do it anymore, And maybe he didn't. That's fine too. It's just, I think one of the keys to really getting to a better place and in helping people enjoy their lives more is if we start really, we can't help it. We are compelled to put certain people on pedestals. There are certain things that we just admire more. And I don't think that's bad. I don't think that's necessarily something we should resist. It just is. It's fine. But I want to see what it would be like if we experimented more with really taking it seriously when we say you are enough. Because we don't take that seriously. You don't take, there's so many things we go, ugh, I cringe if I would ever be that person and in that person's shoes. And the same person goes and looks in their mirror and goes, you're enough. It's like, you don't fucking believe that. And that's fine. The moment you realize you don't believe it, I hope that you are compelled to go, okay, I have to reorient my attitude towards this universe and the possibilities that are out there. If I really want to believe these affirmations, I have to look at every unappealing situation and realize that there's value in that just as much. And that if I'm not afraid of sinking to that level, if I'm not afraid of being in those shoes, I'm probably going to live a more enriched life. That's what I think.
It reminds me, it's really redefining what success even is, because that person that has failed, and they die, what if they were loving every minute of it? Which they probably were. They probably I just love to do this.
Yeah.
And maybe some of those people that made it or successful, maybe they didn't like it as much as so it's like, who really wins?
Right.
Who isn't? It's your own internal human experience. I saw this quote from a guy. He was talking about how who had been financially successful, but not like huge. But he said, yeah, I wouldn't trade places with like an Elon Musk or a multi-billionaire because I'm very happy. No amount of money is going to make this any better, like from the happiness I've found. And I thought of, and you don't even need money to even feel that way. So yeah, I agree with you too. Like it's like there is a lot of nobility and virtue in the person that you're never going to hear of.
Yeah.
That just freaking loves it. Whatever it is, whether it's out here in Hollywood or whatever they're doing.
Yeah. It's like I think I tend to over glorify the underdog. Because oftentimes I feel like one. I feel like I get that sort of outside looking in, like, oh, and so my thing is like, well, I don't even want to be rich and famous. Anyway, you guys aren't even happy. It's like, that's not true. There are people that have, great wealth and they have great family and they're like, I'm happy. And everything is discernment is key. Every situation has its own particular bells and whistles and knobs, and some people are at the top and they're miserable. Some people are close to the top and they're super happy. Some people are at the bottom and they're like, I am totally at peace. And some people are at the bottom like, fuck, dude, I can't fucking break. Some people are at the middle and they're like, I'm kind of bored, but I'm going, it's fine. I'll be all right. And there's so much variety to things. I have to learn to sort of resist that sort of like, well, this is actually what's good and that is bad. It's life will trick you. It's the universe is very tricky sometimes. Sometimes it works in the inverse way that you would intuitively think it would. And oh man, that's a whole fucking rabbit hole I could go down, and I don't know if I really should.
In what way? Like what?
Well, where my mind went was, what did I just say? I'm sort of starting
about how some people's at the bottom, they're miserable. Some people are at the bottom, they're happy as hell. Some are in the middle, like, it could be better, but it's not too bad.
I don't remember what I was going to say, and I don't really care.
Okay, well, this is incredible. There is one topic I wanted to bring up, and we've kind of touched a little bit about the last podcast we did. You mentioned death, and you mentioned something along the lines of when it happens, you want to embrace all of it. Whether it's slow, I'm paraphrasing you, whether it's slow and agonizing, whatever it is, like that's part of this. Like that's part of the. Do you have any take on death, or in any direction? Like, is it about legacy? I need to do this, so I leave this all behind, or do I go somewhere after I die? It can be absolutely any direction. And that's another whole other podcast. Maybe I shouldn't even brought this up. Maybe this will be part 4.
Okay, let's go. Death. Well, I mean, I think about death a lot. It's very interesting. I'm probably thinking about it a lot less lately than I usually do. But yeah, I mean, I kind of, it's in that realm. It comes from that realm of thought of, well, people out there die young and have it's like there is some kind of thing where it's like I need to be okay with death in any form that it may come, and I don't remember. I remember watching some docuseries, and it was a really horrific tale about an elderly person that was really brutally murdered. And it's just so gut wrenching, because it's like you can live 80 years and you think, well, that was my life, not realizing that probably the most significant part of it is that last thing, the thing at the very end, and I don't know, I can't even explain the twisting in my stomach that it made me feel, just the sense of like, why does someone have to go through that? Why? And I think there is that sense of like, well, that's on the table. And in a way, I feel like by not accepting that can happen to me and saying, well, it's it's okay if that happens to me. In a weird way, and I don't know how anyone else would react to this, I feel in a way it's the respectful thing to um the respectful way to address your feelings towards those people. I don't know, I don't know how to explain it. I don't know if that's right. It's such a weird mirage in my mind, but it's like this, you know, if I look at some things as being you know, um, the short end of the stick, it's like, why did I get the short end of the stick? And it's like, well, if I don't look at it as the short end of the stick, and I say, well, I have to be okay with that happening to me. Um, in a way, if I am that, if it does happen to me, if my loved ones know that, they know that I knew that was part of the deal, and I think that they can be a little more at peace with it. I mean, really, death mostly affects the living. It's we who are left behind that have to deal with that. Now, horrific, painful deaths also affect those going through it. It's like that's whatever my feelings are about it, don't spare this person who went through it. It doesn't make it okay. It's really more for me than it is for them. It is for me. It's not for them, really. And that, so I don't know. I don't know, but there is something in me that feels like, I guess it's that sort of sense. There's some sense of justice in me. I think it's kind of got to tether into like the survivor guilt area of like, why should someone else go through that? Why should they be so alone in that experience? If I approach life with a sense of, well, that is part of the deal. I exist in this world and it can get ugly and I don't have any control of that, and that can happen. I accept that and I say, well, if it happens to me, that's okay. Hopefully I can handle it. I mean, I probably can handle it. What happens when I don't handle it? I die. You're either one threshold. You're either handling it and it's excruciating, or you die. This is really morbid, by the way, and I really hope this is not triggering and upsetting to anyone listening. I apologize if it is, but I guess that
it's reality.
It's wanting to. I guess it's really comes from this compelling feeling of like not wanting people to be alone in those moments. And it's, I guess it's the closest I feel like I can get to that feeling. And maybe it's only self-serving and it only helps me, but I really don't know what that is. It's a weird, nebulous kind of abstract thought that really fucks with my head and twists me up inside. But
well, I mean, the reason why I brought it up, because like when we talked about it on the last one, it's still stuck to me. I told you it inspired me, which I still need to put on paper, but an art piece in relation to it, because it is, I like what it's part of the deal. Like,
right.
It's you're born here, you're going to leave here. You don't know how that's going to end up. Like, you don't know what the exit strategy could be.
Yeah.
And I thought it was very interesting what you said, like someone that lived 80 years maybe of pure bliss and then all of a sudden ends in just pure horror.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is morbid, but at the same time, it is the reality of this existence. So thank you for sharing that. we could probably keep going.
Yeah.
But I also we're getting to the end here. You're also the longest podcast I ever did the last time. We went over 3 hours. That was amazing.
Did you publish all of the 3 hours?
I had to cut parts of it, but yeah. But before I give you the last word, what are you working on now? What can we expect from you? If you can talk about any of it.
I'm very secretive about it.
Okay.
But it is. I'm working on another live show that I'm writing, and I'm in love with it. I am so in love with it, and I'm allowing myself to just be so in love with it. I am living it, breathing it. I'm just letting myself go crazy about it. I've told people that I know I'm going to be weird and kind of inaccessible and a little out there, and I'm allowing myself to do that. I'm so excited about it, and it just in terms of playing and really immersing myself in it. But I will not share any details about it yet. It is classified, high clearance.
So if people want to follow you to find out updates whenever this will be revealed, where should they go?
Instagram. That's the only one I use. At Ford Fanter. And that's where you can find me. Yeah.
Okay,
Instagram. Awesome. I don't think I have anything else that is really of note. I do have some stuff on Spotify.
Music and
Ford Fanter at Spotify. You can hear some of my music. And I'm sure if you YouTubed me, there's stuff that pops up.
There is.
Yeah. There you go.
And Ghost is still one of my favorite music pieces I've heard.
Oh.
Like that. I didn't know you were self-taught on all your music stuff. That again, just mind blown. Well, thank you so much for coming on, my friend. I didn't even get a chance to talk about. I mean, you're a fashion icon here in Los Angeles.
Well,
truly, like when I see your Instagram, I'm like, dude, there's no one doing this. Like I thought hey, I'm doing turtlenecks and I wear suits for work, and it's like, oh, dude, you blow me out of the water.
Like, I love clothes. It's like a love language to myself. It's expressive. It's a way to, be joyful in myself and love myself. It's like, yeah, I look good. I feel good. I'm gonna look ridiculous, and I don't care if you think I look ridiculous. I love it. I feel great.
Oh, you look awesome, man.
Thank you. So really... do you.
Thank you. And what do you want to leave us with? Last word. It's all yours. Can be anything you want.
You are my friend, Sam. That's what I'm gonna. You are. Screw you guys. This is our moment. What I want to leave them with is you are a stand-up guy, and I appreciate you so much. I'm so thankful for our friendship.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, right back at you, my friend. It's incredible even having this moment right now because, I've known you for over 5 years now.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of experiences in those 5 years. Making art together. I mean, even someone, as I add on to your last word, someone was asking me about the one acts at Playhouse West. To this day, man, that's me personally. That's one of my favorite artistic experiences is doing that one act with you. Moonshine, directed by Wolf Bodison. I mean, it was special, man. So I mean, I'm very grateful to have met you, to know you, and look very forward to anything you continue to produce. I will be there. I will watch it. I will share it, and I will buy it.
Likewise, my friend. Excelsior!
Thank you, my friend. Until next time.
Yes.
Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Sam Dever podcast. Be sure to follow us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you watch the podcast, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@the Sam Dever podcast.